What's up, Stocktwits Nation? It's Tuesday, April 5th. This is the Daily Rip Live. I'm Katy Perry here with my co-host Shay Boloor, and it's Tuesday, so you know what time that is. It's Jake Wu back in the mix to share some of his setups. I see some of you guys already going nuts in the comments about Onda, etc. Jake, how's it
Ondas.
going? How have you been since we saw you last?
Good. We kind of got a little taste of that caution I was discussing last week. So, had to get a little tactical last week, but the market's pretty resilient. So we'll have to see kind of what happens. But Bitcoin, Bitcoin's definitely keeping me cautious
Hmm?
after its breakdown. So we'll see what happens. But for now, just kind of letting the setups play out.
And for people who weren't listening last week, what did you call?
Well, I just mentioned we're getting to that time of the year where things can happen pretty quickly. Um, I it was pretty impressive to see the VIX spike as much as it did. So generally, I'd like to see that, but it can always be indicative of things to potentially come when you have those types of moves, especially in the S&P 500. We had it happen back in December, um, where we just had a huge red candle, and we did come back pretty quickly. But when you start having moves like that in the market, it always makes me cautious, and you definitely have to be tactical for sure. But it's a market of stocks, so there's always going to be something moving in the right direction. But yeah, so just kind of trying to keep an eye on those and see where those will play out. But yeah, drone stocks have definitely been the name over the last couple days to play, even with the market kind of taking a hit on Friday.
Yep. And speaking of, I love the market of stocks and things going up. Let's talk about Palantir for a second, Shy. We sort of teed this up yesterday. They had a breakout earnings call. Alex Karp ending the call, basically saying sorry to the haters. I love how he's like in check most of the call, and then by the end, he's like, "F it." What did we learn from this earnings call, and did it exceed even your expectations as someone who's long term on this company?
It absolutely did. And I think before I get into the earnings report, I want to set the tone of how dominant they've been this year. Coming into the year, their 2025 revenue estimates were at $3.5 billion. That's how much they're supposed to make on top line. They just got it for 4.2 billion, and we're halfway through the year. That's a $700 million raise halfway through the year, and I think that just shows how dominant AIP has been as what I like to identify as the most important Gen AI application launch of this era so far. So that's how dominant they've been. I want to set the tone. But for the earnings, literally, I could not pick a hole other than valuation. I mean, they crossed $1 billion for the first time ever as a as a company in the quarterly revenue. They crushed estimates at $60 million. Their top line is 48% growth with I think it was 46% operating margin. So they have a Rule 40 score of 94. Just let that sink in for a minute. Like that is not just 2x every software company's dream. It's a little more than that. And I think that it's showing that it's compounding on the top line, and also profitability is not getting sacrificed in the meantime. So that is the characteristic trait of a category leader. I think all eyes have to be on the U.S. commercial metric. That is where the scalability of AIP is going to be identified. Government is always wonky. You never know when the deal has happened. You also know it's a safe haven. You know that the government is going to continue investing in national security, and AI is going to be the top of mind. That's Palantir. But the U.S. commercial front was the biggest variable past couple of years, and AIP was the turnkey for unlocking that specific sector. And this had 93% growth numbers after having a large base as well. Like this is not just 93% of like a couple $1 million. Like this is a substantial base, and they're still growing 93%. That segment alone now is close to 1/3 of the total business. And that was, I think, a year ago, it was like 20%. So you see how it's becoming a greater allocation weight of the total revenue business, a total business. And that's great to see because, like I mentioned, government side of that equation is always, you never know. So that was always like a very wonky on any kind of trying to DCF model this stock, but commercials gained momentum, and I think that the bookings were also absurd. I want to say it was up 140% year over year. Total contract value is like 2.3 billion in those deals. I think that you're seeing this company just execute just on every single metric, and they're guiding up aggressively along the way, and you see how easy they are beating their estimates every earnings quarter. So I think that this is a company where if we ever get a big dip, not just like a 1 day dip like we did on Friday, if you get a substantial like Terra 4 pullback, yen carry trade pullback, like there's some, like what Jake was saying, there's a black swan event that occurs in Q3. You just never know what it is. Nobody anticipates it, but something happens. If we do, and you want AI exposure, you need to have Palantir. Ignoring the valuation, I get it. Valuation is absurd, but you guys have heard me talking about the stock for almost a year. Look where it was 6 months ago. It was at freaking $80, and ever since $30, valuation's been absurd, and it's literally 5x. So I think that it's tough to participate in the stock now. I get that. Valuations clearly not mattering at all in this AI race and AI exposure, but the AI tsunami, every freaking day I talk about it, they are the lifeboats in stage 2 AI to get on, to survive, not just survive, thrive that AI tsunami. And they justified it again yesterday. And it's just, they can keep exceeding my expectations. And them and Nvidia are like the two biggest winners of this AI theme so far, and they keep delivering every 3 months.
Yeah, you referenced the commercial growth. I think that they really emphasize that at the top of the commentary, because I think if you're not as deep in the stock as folks like you, Shy, you know them for their government contracts. In fact, in New York, they have an office, and there's people always protesting outside of it. They won't let the people in the office, which if I worked there, I'd be like, oh, time to go home. I guess. But they this is big, and like also to your point, it's the base is there. It's not, when I first saw the 93%, I was like, oh, it must have been like really low commercial, but it's not. So that was a big highlight. They also reinforced one of the points you make often on this show, Shy, which is just the power of these LLMs really depends on how you're able to organize and use and deploy that data. And I think they did a good job of articulating that and talking about where they fit exactly. So yeah, I think it was, and those calls are always, interesting and exciting just based on the personalities. Jake, I don't know. Go ahead, Jai.
One last thing I want to add, because like my 13-year-old future sister-in-law was over yesterday, and I was trying to explain Palantir to her.
Nice.
It did not go well at all. But the metric I was saying, like these LLMs, because she uses ChatGPT.
Yeah.
All these LLMs, they're literally the brain, the next gen brain. So think about it. If you have a brain in your head, how do you communicate all your thoughts? That mouth is Palantir. That's the only way. So you can be the smartest person in the world, have the greatest brain. It's pointless if nobody knows what you're thinking at all. And the only way they can know what you're thinking is through the vocalization of your thoughts. That's Palantir, real world decisions. So like, again, it's a dumb way of comparing it, but she kind of got it now. And she, a little, maybe she was just saying it to my old geezer at 32 years old, so I shut up. But maybe that's the case. But I don't know. I think I like that comparison. I might use that going forward.
Yeah, I mean, she might owe you a big one later on in life. Speaking of Palantir and kind of how it's applied and used, we had someone in the comments call out that Ondas and Palantir actually have a partnership. I just confirmed this on the Ondas press release. So let's pivot to that, Jake. First of all, if you have any thoughts on Palantir, I don't think that's one of the setups you've shown before. But if not, we can use that to shift over to Ondas. There's a lot of people who are chomping at the bit to get the latest there from you.
Well, it's funny. I was actually going to bring that up. So I traded Ondas. I just call it ONDS because I don't know how to technically say the name. But
I could be wrong.
Ondas. Yeah. So I initially found this through Brian Shannon back in December. Funny enough, and he was just mentioning, there's some of these really high beta drone stocks starting to move. And so that's when it like kind of caught my attention. And I mean, it moved extremely fast. I think I got in at like 114, think I got out at like 150, thought I was a genius, and then it went to like 350 like 2 weeks later. So the personality of the stock is definitely there as far as making huge moves. And then when they came out with this news in March, this is when the tariff war was really starting and the market was getting hit. And this ONDS literally gapped up like 48% or something on March 11th when that happened. And I was like, oh, okay, now it's time to definitely get a little more serious about the stock, because I mean, if they're partnering with Palantir, that's a pretty good sign. It's got all of the keywords. It's got drone. It's got AI. Palantir, just partnering with them is huge. So that's what actually really got me serious. Like, holy crap, this actually may not just be a shitty penny stock company. This actually may have something going for it. So yeah, I mean, this is one that it's just got, on top of that, the government contract side of things. They just came out with news yesterday that they had some kind of, let's see, what was it? ONDS successfully completes initial government-led counter-drone pilot programs in Europe and Asia, paving the way for long-term homeland security deployment. So, like, you definitely want to find companies that have some type of partnership or relationship with the government. The government's really good at continuing to print money and constantly has it. So that's, it really hits some of those huge kind of key things for me: the government, the AI side of things, the drone side of things. So I like it as a trade. I'm in it as a trade, but at the same time, like I may just do the same thing I did last time and sell covered calls and see if I'll just get called on it at some point in the next. I may sell, covered calls for August 15th because it's like so close. Get some income, and if I get called at like $3.50 or $4, then I got in at 190. So take my shares. But yeah, no, I mean, I think honestly, I think this thing's probably going over $5 this year at some point. It's just got the momentum, and drone stocks in general got really hot again yesterday. So I'll kind of go over some interesting just kind of technical stuff on it. As far as the longer term side of things, and this is what I've been trying to focus on, is what's happening on the monthly chart. So you can see here that we are finally breaking above this February 2021 pivot VWAP. That did happen a couple times back in November of 2021, but that's about the only time. You had this kind of intra-month move up, and then you continued to close down. You closed below it here. So still really early in the month, so that could happen here too. But the fact that we had a wick last month and now we're actually doing a secondary move above this VWAP, I think it's probably time for this to make its move towards pretty much the previous support zone from February of 2022, which happens to be kind of near where we topped out in late December, early January of 2025. So that pretty much ranges from 340 to 390. I know there's some type of announcement coming out with drones today for US drones, so I'm not sure exactly what that's going to do to the prices, but overall, I mean, things look pretty solid here. And yeah, pretty much from a technical perspective, from a fundamental perspective, something that can get even more legs and momentum. It's kind of got all of those things right now.
Let's stick on drones for a second and do the zoom out, as we often do with you, Shay. And in your larger thematics, you talked yesterday about the wars of the future being fought up here and not, necessarily on the ground. Zooming out long term, drones, what opportunities for thematic investors exist in the market for outside of Ondas, or perhaps in addition to Ondas? And how do you view that particular lane within the thematic of, the future of defense?
So funny. I don't know if Jake knows this, but December I put a link in the chat. December last year, I called Ondas my top 2025 pick, one of my top small caps for the drone theme. I think what Ondas is doing, they had such a great opportunity. They have a great opportunity. And The reason I believe that is because they have a network play. It's like a communication play on drones, and that's my favorite kind of picks and shovels on a thematic, especially a hardware one, is not just like selling a one-off hardware sale, it's just building that ecosystem. And I don't own Ondas anymore. It wasn't because the thesis broke. I just don't have faith in their management. They dilute like crazy. They don't communicate effectively, and that's the only knock. And that's an annoying knock because I do love the tech, I do love the product, I do love the fit in the theme, and clearly they're executing. The stock prices are getting reflected on that, but when you're a small cap company, it's all about management. I've learned. So like that's just something
Mhm.
I'm waiting to see. Doesn't mean the thesis is wrong. It's you actually validating it. It's just I don't like the captain of ship. You guys hear me talk about that all the time, or I don't have faith in it. To answer your question though, Katie, I think that the best way and maybe the safest way to play the drones is cybersecurity. Drones will continue their momentum. It's going to be part of the reality. And what do you have to do to protect the hardware above the sky? It's through cybersecurity. People, it's going to increase the TAM for that as well. And also, just look at the communication network. Some other names. I think I made a post this morning about it actually, because there is going to be some kind of announcement today. I don't know, Jake, if you mentioned that American drone dominance announcement that Secretary Duffy announced. So, like, you see, Ondas is one of the names as that drone communication network I talked about. RCAT's gaining a lot of popularity for like the tactical field drones. You got KTOS as the defense systems, and like uh, Innovix is actually like a really interesting next gen battery play. But either way, like I think it's really important to identify picks and shovels in that theme because hardware is just so early. And I think that usually when you're first in the hardware theme, doesn't mean you're the best because hardware can get replicated, but what can't get replicated is sticky ecosystems. And usually that comes with a networking play. And Ondas does have that communication network. So like we'll see if it works. And maybe Eric was just super early in what he was doing with Ondas and it was a bad environment and I just judged him way too quickly. That could be the case. And I might revisit it soon. But as of right now, like Ondas is my favorite drone play angle, a pure play drone angle, and they're executing.
So with you made an interesting point about small caps and just the role of the management team. I want to double click on that for a second. Is that primarily due to the fact that the stakes are so high, the smallest moves when you're a company that size can have a huge outsized impact on the share price, or what is the reason behind that? Even I'm thinking even for something like this company in a very hot space with some momentum, why is the management team so critical to you when you're looking at those investment opportunities for the small caps?
Fundamentals are ugly in small cap world. So you don't have the proof in the pudding that things are turning around. There's no profitability. There's going to be dilution because of the lack of profitability. So essentially, the house is on fire because there's no profitability. So for people not to panic, knowing that they're seeing the house is on fire, you need a steady hand to say everything's gonna be okay. This is the pathway to exit the house in the front door, and we're gonna make it out safely. That is why management matters so much in the small cap world because you need that safety monitor almost where guys, we're not going to die in this fire being a house fire. Like we're going to make it out. And if you have a management who's like, oh, like a Michael Scott, like in the office scene of like freaking out, we gotta go, and he books it first before everyone else. Like that's the danger of having a really poor management on small cap. Like you can't have that. So like again, that's maybe the dumbest metaphor you can do, but
Actually, when you
that's
said that, I was like, this is a show I would watch where it's like The Office, but it's a small cap drone company. Like, do you know
wait,
anyone in LA
that's
who
so funny. That's
can
a
we
good
do
one.
that? Nobody steal this idea because we're gonna make a little side project.
Well,
Um,
another great idea that I used to work in the entertainment space, obviously not in the creative world. I was in corporate strategy, but like I pitched Silicon Valley for crypto and I got freaking rejected.
what? What
Yeah,
year was this? Like,
4 years ago, four or
oh
five
my
years
God,
ago.
it's been so good.
It was pre SBF too, getting arrested. So I think
Oh,
now it's even better if you have an SBF character involved. Like I don't know, I love Silicon Valley, but I think a crypto spice to that would have been
oh, even
incredible.
yeah, that would just be like the next level of off the rails. Well, hey, let's stay on crypto for a second because we got a message from our partners. What this company is not the Silicon Valley of crypto; it is Gemini. and they have a Gemini credit card we're here to talk about. So investing in Bitcoin has never been easier with the Gemini credit card. Let's hold and watch this for a second. With the Gemini credit card, you can earn Bitcoin back on everyday purchases. So gas, dining, groceries, whatever you're spending your hard-earned dollars on. And there's no annual fee. And you can sign up today at gemini.com/cryptotwits for a $200 Bitcoin bonus. Terms apply. Invest as you spend with the Gemini credit card, issued by WebBank. See rates and fees for more details. Sign up today, earn that $200 Bitcoin bonus when you spend $3,000 in the first 90 days. Promotional terms apply. And the Gemini credit card is again issued by WebBank. See rates and fees on their site. So thanks to our friends at Gemini for that. Let's stick on crypto for a second, because actually we had some more IPO news out of the crypto world. I don't know if you guys caught this. Bullish, which is a Peter Thiel backed crypto brokerage. I think skews more towards advanced institutional. They announced plans to IPO to further spur their growth. So the IPO train keeps on rolling from last week's big Figma outing, I guess you could say. I want to circle back to that in a bit. But Jake, you mentioned crypto this week. Let's go to kind of the Bitcoin as a signal, and then I do want to go back to just IPO market in general. But when you talk about join the show, you talk about looking at Bitcoin price as a signal. Tell us about what you're seeing since we last saw you last week, and how that might be impacting your strategy.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the biggest reasons I started to get really cautious in the market over the last 2 weeks, one, the seasonality side of things, which is always there, but then two, the market was hitting new all-time highs while Bitcoin was not. So that's always at least a caution flag for me. So it happened back in January, February. So Bitcoin had pretty much topped mid-January, and then the market continued to move up. So you kind of have that almost discrepancy that happens. I mean, Bitcoin for me is by far the best risk proxy that I can use in the market. I mean, if you look at the lows back in April, what was Bitcoin doing? It wasn't really breaking down anymore as the market was breaking down. So pretty much when Bitcoin stalls and the market goes up, generally a pretty strong sign of some type of divergence, discrepancy out there, where the risk on asset, the main liquid risk on asset in the world, is not mirroring what the market is doing. So same thing here. I mean, the market did have a really strong move up over the last day, but you can see Bitcoin is, definitely almost like bear flagging. So if we go to, I'll just share my screen real quick. That is definitely why I still am a bit cautious here in general. So the main thing I was watching for was pretty much Bitcoin breaking below this anchored VWAP. So finally, when we closed below it, that's almost exactly when the market started to waterfall as well. So Bitcoin really front ran this. If you look, Thursday is when Bitcoin started breaking down heavily through this area, and then the market followed on Friday. Now, TBD, but we're not even back to this anchored VWAP for just a basic retest of the previous support. Now that would be flipping to potential resistance. So yeah, for that reason, it definitely has me cautious. And kind of see here a little bit of a bear flag forming. The one thing that continues to be interesting, though, is if you look at TLT on the weekly candle chart, it's in this like just massive descending triangle. Generally, if descending triangles break out to the upside, they're pretty aggressive moves. If TLT broke to the upside, that means rates would start to drop. That would, theoretically should continue to fuel the Bitcoin move. That could finally bring small caps back to all-time highs. But at the same time, you always have to think about this time of year just really being a pretty important time to always kind of have your head on a swivel, because you can have Fridays happen again very easily. On top of that, the fact that Amazon is really not participating in this rally at all is definitely a little concerning as well. So if we go to Amazon on the daily candle chart, I am starting to get a little bit interested here, but at the same time, I mean, if this April 21st VWAP, pretty much the volume weighted average price since we bottomed in April, if that breaks down, you do have a gap down here at like 194. So at this point, I just am not loving the fact that Amazon is not participating at all. The risk to reward, kind of if you were in just a quick swing trade, is getting decent down here. So if if you look in the past, we have had price kind of interact with this VWAP multiple times, and both times you had pretty strong moves to the upside. Ideally, I'd like to see some type of hammer candle forming here. Ideally, I would like to see a red candle close today, but the Williams percent range, this yellow shaded indicator, actually move up. So that's a type of divergence that I look for, where essentially you've got stock price closing down on the day, closing below the previous candle's low or previous candle's close, and then the Williams percent range ticking up. And if we had a hammer on this, I'd probably buy some into tomorrow for the kind of midweek potential second half of the week swing trade. If we did get a kind of a flush here, Williams percent range pops, the RSI becomes oversold, that would definitely be my signal, maybe to at least give this trade a try. But it's going to be pretty obvious when this breaks down, because if you get a daily close below this VWAP zone, and this in particular, if you want to kind of try to replicate this chart, it's a 1.25% lower band offset. So that essentially means that you're offsetting the VWAP 1.25% below the actual VWAP, which is the blue line. The reason that I'm doing that is simply because you had this wick from April 30th where price broke below the VWAP but managed to hold above it. So I want to capture that wick and make sure that, if price does close below the VWAP, but it doesn't close below this light blue line, then I know that, okay, maybe this is a false signal breakdown. So the offsets give you a little bit of margin of error and some flexibility to potentially, give yourself a little bit of cushion before completely thinking that the trade is a bust. So Amazon is definitely one that I'm looking at too, but this could definitely be kind of like Bitcoin, a bellwether here that maybe things aren't as strong in the market as we think, even though we just had a face ripping rally yesterday.
Face ripping, love it. Someone in the chat asked what the potential ticker for Buller should be, because Webull grabbed Bull before them. That must have really pissed them off. It looks like they're going to go with BLSH. And Jake, I want to quickly touch on Webull as well before we kind of zoom out as opening bell is approaching. Webull's been one you've been calling out a lot. And there's, broader trends in fintech on the thematic side that I'll get into with you, Shay. But Webull in particular, what's the latest and the greatest with those guys?
Well, one, honestly, Webull is so annoying because people get so obsessed with that ticker. It's amazing. I don't know if it's because, like I said, for whatever reason, when these meme stocks have a word as the ticker, like bull, hymns, people just get obsessed. I remember back like years ago when Wish was a big thing, and everyone got so obsessed with this ticker because it was Wish, So I'm not even kidding. It's a thing. Open, think of all the stocks that really get big moves, and they're all, the acronym for the ticker is an actual word, and people just get so worked up. So God forbid this thing pulled back like a few, back to its upward sloping trend line that it bounced off. I tactically I pretty much went all cash on Tuesday, so that included my position here. But I definitely would get back in, but at this point, like I'm kind of trying to focus on having less positions and remaining pretty strategic in what I'm doing when the market could do whatever. But I mean, my upside target has pretty much been this July 24th pivot VWAP over the last few days. So if you look here, that has been the case here and here. So if we did continue to move up like we are a little bit today, this VWAP is right at $15. So $15 is also just a psychological level. If it breaks and closes above this VWAP on the daily candle, so that means at 4 p.m. Eastern time, the close needs to be above. At this point, it's 1501. Remember, the volume weighted average price is an average. So if there's a lot of volume that comes in below the VWAP today, then that could lower the average, So if you are watching this VWAP, make sure you throw it on your chart versus me saying the VWAP's at 1501, because like I said, if there's a lot of volume that comes in, and that volume is below the VWAP, it's going to pull the VWAP down. That's what happens when you have an average and you have data points coming in that are at a lower price or number than the average. It pulls it down. So who knows? Maybe by the end of the day, the VWAP's at 14.99. I'm not sure, but just keep an eye on that VWAP to see if the daily candle closes above it. That would definitely change this little very minute pullback. And I call it minute because people forget, when I was first looking at this in mid-July, it ran 50% pretty much from, when I started taking interest in it. So it's Webull, it pulls back. It pulled back almost 27%, yet it's still at a higher low. So like I said, there's specific retail tickers that almost get annoying to trade because people get so obsessed with them. And it just honestly kind of turns me off to the trade because for whatever reason, it just something psychologically, people just get really into these kind of meme type tickers. But overall, that's the main thing I'm watching for is a daily close above that July 24th VWAP.
It's psychological. It's marketing, branding, it sticks. I think Hood probably counts within that, although they're doing great on the
like Open. I mean, Open is a classic one.
Yeah, tell us your favorite tickers. I think last time you heard I talked about my favorite, which is David's DTF. It's a great one.
Open, hymns. I mean, like I said, back in this was probably in 2022 or something, like Wish. I don't think anyone knew. I still don't know what that company did, but I know that
e-commerce or something. It was
like something like that.
Yeah.
And it was just, I mean, people just, make a wish. Like it was all these dumb things. And I'm like, oh my God. No wonder it went to zero.
We got to let people have the things that make them happy, And then I remember Meta, they bought that from, I think it was Roundhill Metaverse ETF. I'm like, oh, I would die to know how much they paid them for that ticker. It's almost like domain squatting now. It's like if I was an ETF, I would just try to get a sick ticker and then sell the ticker, and there's my business.
That could be a thing, to be honest.
So hey guys, ticker squatting, test it out sometime. That's not financial or business advice, just a thought or a concept to ponder. Let's zoom out a bit, look at the state of the markets as we open NASDAQ. Trending a little higher, obviously, on the huge Palantir earnings report. Little shakiness elsewhere. When I say shakiness, I mean nothing crazy, but we had the president was on CNBC this morning covering a litany of topics. One was potential replacements for Powell. He said that Bessent was not in the running, but there were 4 contenders. It's starting to feel like a TV show that could get spun out of this with the 4 finalists, and maybe we can drop them on an island somewhere and see who survives. He also had some new comments on tariffs, which was causing some people to kind of pause this morning. Another big headline, Shay, I want to get your thoughts on Figma. So Figma ripping last Friday. I had a lot of people, I'm friends with a lot of people in the startup world, designers. They were calling its Designs IPO. It's a very emotional IPO. That's down 27% today.
Wow.
Do you think this is a volatility there? Because it was up all last week. So Figma in particular, or any of these new IPOs, what would you be your word to the wise for investors tracking these hot IPOs that have a lot of sort of emotional, the tech world behind them? What would you tell people looking at those types of opportunities?
Invest a good time to invest in Figma was 2023, not now. I think it's or whenever the Adobe
Mm-hmm.
acquisition rumor was. I think it's very expensive. It's a 25-30 billion dollar company. It's not a 50-60 billion dollar company. I think that clearly you're seeing the appetite for IPOs is thirsty. I think the multi-year absence of any kind of real IPO player is there's like a demand vacuum right now a bit, right? Where you have these like companies that people actually use instead of like these like random fintech companies, some company in the crypto called Bullish nobody's ever heard of, but like these are Figma's a real company, and it's like a new derivative of what Photoshop is becoming from the Adobe lens. And I think that it's a great company. It's got great fundamentals, but it's nowhere close to shouldn't be a 40 to 45 billion dollar company. It should be trading in the 30s, around 40 probably. But IPO, it's usually wonky. It's usually levers on risk on environments. Right now, there's a big risk on. And sorry, I'm just getting distracted because freaking Axon's up 18%. Palantir
What's
is up 10%. Like these, and you guys know I went hard on the new age defense bucket for all year. Those are my bad boys. Those are the two, and they're just ripping on the strong earnings. Um,
So Axon
but
reported yesterday, Shy, or is that this
yeah,
morning?
they reported
Okay.
yesterday.
What were some of the highlights from that?
I didn't get a chance to get into it too much, which is crazy because it's just yesterday was so
I
many
mean, you had
earnings
a third of your
reports.
portfolio happening this week,
Yeah,
so I
but
get it.
no, but I mean, I did look at the numbers. And the numbers are just like mind-boggling in the fact that a lot of people are still don't realize this is an AI play. People still think them as a compute the cameras on cops, essentially, but they don't realize it's a cloud ecosystem because they store a lot of the evidence into that cloud ecosystem. Again, it's a monopoly they have in that space. I call them the control center for public safety for a reason. There is no competing product. Just wait until drones become a reality. Instead of having cameras on humans, they're going to have cameras above the sky as well. It's a massive TAM expansion. That hasn't even hit their fundamentals yet right now because it's so early on drones. But the AI Aero bundle is what I'm referencing as an AI play because a lot of, like I know some cops, and it takes like a third of their time is just doing these stupid standardized reportings of whatever they did in their everyday work, where it's sit at the desk and just standardized
Mhm.
reporting. It's super tedious, but Axon clearly created an AI feature where it saves time. It's called the Draft One, where the amount of time, I think they shared this on the earnings call yesterday, where the amount of time that was saved every week was 11 hours for a person. That's massive because guess what that 11 hours allows? More public. I know this is such a polarizing topic. Like, is more public safety from cops a good, bad thing? I'm ignoring the politics of
Yeah.
that. I'm saying it frees up 11 hours of actual FTE hours a week. If they're understaffed, those 11 hours is a huge deal. And also, it's just it's a great example of when you have a monopoly in a space, you can leverage super cycles like AI to capitalize on that. Axon's a perfect example. People, they weren't an AI play until AI became a thing, and now they are an AI player. And again, it's a great example of they're going to survive the AI tsunami. They're one of the companies that have the lifeboats, and their valuation is really, really up there. It was up there at $400. So like it's always going to be up there, but they caught a major bid. They're up 15%. Palantir is even another one. They're up 10% today. It's crazy. It's a $400 billion
Yeah.
company now. It's nuts. It's like
Wow.
I saw a post. It's worth 2 United Healthcares now.
Wow.
That's crazy to me. And that's the world's largest insurance company. And it's
Yeah.
crazy right now.
Yeah, interesting. On Axon, what you were describing, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but like it's if the use of AI is that replacing their logging and recording of what they're doing, that seems like that would be a positive thing if that's automated. But just
Yeah.
for transparency, I got distracted when you were talking because I was checking out the Taser 7 on their website. Look at this bad boy.
Oh, also, another reason why I think if they had a Karp-like CEO, it would be a completely different story on the stock. I don't think Rick cares at all about sentiment because he's such a company speaks for itself. They
Yeah.
execute every 3 months. But if they had a showman who, I don't know, pitched a narrative of command center for public safety, like I think the stock would just be an absolute cold following. It would just ride hard.
Not for nothing too, just the website design, putting
It's
everything
clean.
else aside, is very like they've invested a lot in the brand, which is interesting because they sell to law enforcement. That's usually I would expect there to be a very not exciting website. So kudos to whoever designed that. Um, Sticking on IPOs for a second, there was actually an interesting Fortune article that came out. They interviewed a bunch of VCs and polled them and asked which companies they thought were next to sort of go out. Some of the bigger or more commonly referenced names, Anduril, obviously, we've talked about those guys a lot. We were talking about drones. Also, Canva, you got Canva on one side, which is like, let's make nice images and slides that are pretty. And then you have Anduril. But Canva is a beast as a design tool. And maybe they're not looking at Figma and saying, hey, maybe it's our turn. Midjourney was listed, and also on the fintech side, Revolut, which is a huge fintech out of the UK. I think they started as a neobank, but now they have the brokerage side of things. You can do crypto trading, and so similar to what we saw with the bullish news, it's like where's the saturation for these trading platforms? Because we had Yoni Asia from eToro on last week. They're international. You have Webull, as Jake brought up. You have SoFi that added a lot of new users their last earnings call. So these platforms are still growing. It makes you wonder, like, what's the ceiling on these, and who's going to be almost too late to get out? Because now there's a few of them swirling around. Fintechs in general, Shai, we've talked about them before. Just being sort of it's kind of commoditized, right? A lot of them are offering the same product, so it is about the experience. And Robinhood investing in their experience in different ways than a SoFi. How do you think about these fintechs looking around? Whether it's the bullish, seeing Coinbase, or Revolut, seeing Robinhood, Webull, eToro. What is your read on this flurry of fintech activity in the public markets lately?
I think a lot of companies were born in the 0% interest rate environments, and now there is a supply and demand issue. Clearly, there's tomato. You just don't know the real difference. They're
Hmm.
UI wrappers most of the time. I think that you have to be really specific on why you own a fintech name. For example, Robinhood clearly won't get into it because we talk about it all the time, but the UI experience and the ability to capitalize on the latest and greatest organically by leveraging their ecosystem. SoFi, they're clearly the neo cloud leaders. Like they are just their membership growth is bonkers. And I think we all know that once you get into a JP Morgan, a Chase or Wells Fargo, SoFi, you just don't leave. It's just such a headache to transfer. I think that you have to be really, 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 really specific about why you own a fintech company because there is going to be a lot of mergers going forward. It's a highly fragmented space. I think that I don't really know how to value fintech companies because it's so competitive and they're cannibalizing each other's take rate because of just how many companies there are. But there is a massive tailwind for all these companies. It's that transfer of wealth, the
Hmm.
boomers to the next generation that is going to be so much money. So like maybe that provides a high tide raises all boats, and I'm just being too specific. But I'd rather invest in the best, and clearly Robinhood and SoFi are the best. And there's definitely other great fintech players out there. I think stable coins are a very real thing, and I think that Circle, I don't know if it's the winner of that, but stable coins as a theme it's definitely going to be here in the long run. And uh, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a thematic investor. That's not my theme that I
Yeah.
have conviction in, so it's tough.
The wealth transfer is interesting, even thinking about some of these themes that even Vlad Tenev has been talking about, where homeownership not being the American dream. You have the housing market and boomers holding on to these assets, potentially getting ready to sell those, and that money maybe not going back into the housing market. Maybe it's getting put into a Robinhood account or something. So definitely fascinating times. You briefly mentioned interest rate environment spurring a lot of these companies. We obviously have some things going on in the macro side. Jake, I want to talk about TLT in particular. We had the jobs report last week. TLT is seeing some movement off of that. What are you looking at with the iShares Treasury ETF in particular?
Well, just really that the fact that price has been kind of coiling up now for, I mean, a long time. I'm trying to figure out which, maybe is this one. So one, it's kind of been holding on this extremely long-term kind of just basic support zone here. So uh, if we get a change in the Fed, just any changes in the Fed, who's running it, anything in regards to just kind of a change in heart about what interest rates should be, I think, TLT is probably going to break out to the upside. I mean, you can kind of see it on the monthly candle. So you kind of have this just very basic horizontal previous support zone. And then this is where you get kind of that coiling going on. The problem is this thing's been kind of trying to bottom out for like 2 years. So very similar to other setups that I've shared that are monthly candle setups, they can take months to play out. So I think I read that the odds of the Fed lowering rates in September are like 95% or something now. So I mean, I think the market's probably starting to price that in a bit, and that's definitely what I'm keeping an eye on. But where's the weekly? I was gonna try to find the weekly candle chart, but we can look at the daily. The daily is always tough because it's so gappy. But I mean, if this does continue to move up, um, you know, it's almost hard to do analysis on the daily. But there's a gap at 88.30, which is kind of crazy because that's still extremely low compared to where we were even earlier this year. So my slight worry is the fact that one of the big things that happened after we got off the show last week that I started to notice was interest rates were tanking, i.e. a TLT was going up, but small caps were dropping as well. So when that happens, generally it kind of gives me like markets getting a little worried about a recession vibe, because if rates are dropping and small caps are dropping, that shouldn't happen. If rates are dropping really strong, small cap should be doing well. That means they're potentially have less burden of interest rates on their debt, all of these things. So that's my only concern, is that if bond prices start moving up, rates start dropping, is it because rates are dropping because of potential recession fears in the market? And we saw that back in April, March and April, where literally the market was getting crushed as rates were also dropping hard too. So that's the one thing I'm kind of continuing to keep a close eye on with TLT. But like I said, the next 2 months is, you really just have to be on the lookout, head on a swivel. Things can change quick. So definitely keep an eye on TLT or TLT or TNX. If TNX is dropping hard and the market is dropping with it, not like the best scenario that I'd like to see play out.
So yeah, speaking of things changing fast, we have more earnings on deck for today. AMD is one of them. Shy, I saw Danielle called out telling people to keep an eye out for AMD. I think these guys are adjacent to some of the themes you follow. AMD in particular, what are you kind of watching out for? I think they report at 5 p.m. Eastern after closing bell today.
So AMD was one of the players of this year. I call it can be a very important catch-up trade. And the reason for that is the whole market is confusing why AMD shouldn't catch a bid. It's not if AMD does well, it doesn't have to be at the expense of Nvidia doing poorly or taking some of Nvidia's lunch. That's not the case at all. We're seeing, like, we had Future, and like we're seeing a lot of evidence that the AI accelerator market is exceeding all expectations next couple years. So AMD, all they have to do is get a sub 10% share of that AI accelerator market. Nvidia can maintain the 70 to 80% dominance that they have, and the rest can go custom silicon. But that sub 10% is a massive opportunity. It would cause a real big re-rating on AMD stock because they are going to be turning into this inference engine for this new era where training data and quality mattered a lot in the training data space part wave of this AI theme. Inference era, it doesn't matter as much. It's more about quantity than quality. Quality still matters. I'm not saying it doesn't, but quantity becomes a bigger weight in the equation of um, where you put your money in the AI investment. And that is a lever that AMD is going to be able to pull. And I think for my expectations today, it's going to be all about, are they going to start identifying their AI revenue going forward? Like that MI 350 pricing bump that they had, I think it was just a couple weeks ago or maybe last week, went from 15 to 20K, 25K. That to me is flashing a signal that they're no longer just a budget option to Nvidia's Blackwell stack. It's actually becoming a viable competing product that has actual performance credentials that can be adopted at scale from like the Metas, the Oracles, or even the major inference users in Tesla. So like I think that the narrative of them being second fiddle because of they get the leftovers of Nvidia is kind of diminishing what AMD is actually creating right now. It's so the inference boom we're about to see right now. We're getting glimpses of it, but we're going to see a huge amount of it in the next couple of years. AMD is going to be able to benefit of that substantially. So I think that it's really important to see their AI specific revenue call outs. I think they removed that recently. I also want to see some momentum on like how they're doing in the data center space. Like I want to see, I think the data center segment was like 50% of the revenue. I think that's uh consensus is still modeling that to be around the same similar part of their total business, but there is going to be a ramp up into the second half of this year, especially if I think it's MI 355 launch is going to be happening, and they're going to be reopening their 308s shipments in China. So like I think AMD, it's clearly getting re-rated right now. It's like at a 1 year high. Yeah, it's above a 1 year high. Expectations are there now. So like they have to deliver. Lisa needs to deliver. She's an incredible operator. They've had an Nvidia problem for a long time to the training wave. Now it's the inference wave. I think it's a different animal, a different arena, and I think they're going to deliver.
All right. Well, we'll hear from Lisa, Sue, and crew after closing bell today. We're also going to hear from Lucid, Snaps reporting, Match Group. I love following that one to see if is online dating dead. I don't know. I'm in New York. A lot of people are just giving up on that, but we will see how they do. They keep acquiring more and more apps. Shai, you briefly mentioned China. I know we have the trade deadline coming up. Jake, before we round out, I know Baba has been one that you're tracking. So let's shift back over to you and talk about Baba in particular, only because people at the top of the show, they were already asking you to talk about it. So let's go there before we close out for today.
Yeah, I mean, Baba, it's one that I had options in. I switched out the options. I got shares just because I think I mentioned in the last show, there's a time and a place where it makes sense to trade options in the market for me. And pretty much from now until the end of September is just not it. Does that mean you can't make money in options? No. Does that mean that I don't feel that I have the edge that I had over the summer months when seasonality is in your favor? All of these things, definitely. So I'd prefer to have shares of Baba. Even if Baba dropped 3%, 4% from here, that's 3 or 4% on the share price versus maybe 30 to 50% on whatever options you're in. So it's just a lot easier to sleep at night during this time of the year. And yes, the market's going up for sure, but yeah, that's when people get complacent again. They forget literally what just happened on Friday. I'm not thinking the stock market's going to have some crazy crash, but if you're trading options, you generally need the market to move in the right direction multiple candles in a row. Well, we're just entering that time of the year where you have one day up, the market's up 1.5%. The next day, the market's down 2% intraday. That's not a great environment for options because it can just completely chop you up. And so that, yeah, I did take the shares position on this one. Kind of funny, we're on the daily chart here. Pretty clear setup. Previous resistance back from June has flipped to support. That is what an SR flip is. Support turns resistance, or resistance turns support. You've kind of got this bull flag here. But the main thing that I really like about BABA continues to be on the longer term time frame. You've got a very similar setup as you did back in late 2024 into 2025. August is technically a pretty decent month for BABA as well. You've got the technical setup there. So seasonality is backing this setup with the volume shelf. You have technically kind of this bull flag breakout for the month of July. So if this plays out the same way, I could easily see this retesting the 140s, 150s. And the thing about Chinese stocks is these moves can literally happen in 1 to 2 candles. 1 to 2 candles on the monthly chart is 1 to 2 months. So that does not mean that for those that do like to play the option side of things, that I would be looking at anything. I mean, if I were to play the options, let's say that I thought this move was going to happen. We're not in a bad time of the year. I wouldn't even be looking at anything less than like October, maybe even November, because that's just how Chinese stocks are. They can chop you up like crazy. Just like, I mean, especially if you're in options, you could have 2 weeks of just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then finally the move comes out of nowhere within 2 days, and the stocks literally BABA could be up 15% within literally 2 daily candles. So that's the problem with Chinese stocks. I think that's why a lot of people don't like to trade them, because it's not even worth it to them to deal with that kind of price action before you do get these moves. And I totally get it. It can be extremely frustrating, but holding shares makes that a lot easier to deal with. But, monthly candle setup is there. The bull flag breakout technically for July, but then HSI, same thing. I've been sharing this chart almost the last 2 or 3 weeks on here. We did get the July close above this diagonal resistance zone. So you did kind of get what we needed to see in order to kind of trigger that move. On top of that, we have this area where there's just not a lot of liquidity above here. So prices can move very quickly through these volume gaps, as we've seen with multiple setups that I've shared on the show. And so, yeah, even the index itself you can literally have, look at this. Back in February, HSI moved 20% from the open to the high for the month of February for the index, the Hang Seng index. So this is not your traditional like S&P 500. Oh, wow, we had a 5% up month. That's awesome. In China, a 5% move in a month in either direction is like average. So I wouldn't be shocked to see if we have a 5 to 10% month in China for the month of August. That would put us around 27K for HSI. And I think BABA would be well over 130 to 135 if that happened. And we got that move. So yeah, still remain bullish on China. I kind of changed the vehicle that I was using. I'd much prefer to trade shares. I still like Baidu as well. Baidu is just a name that it's still kind of coiling up, and the liquidity, even though it's a $30 billion company, the liquidity, the spreads are much better on BABA.
I think I saw Baidu in the headlines yesterday, joining with Lyft, right, in Europe. So again, robotaxi, autonomous, it all goes back to right from your setups to Shai's big themes. And as we mentioned, lots of earnings coming in today. We have potentially new BLS chief being named. Maybe these 4 people that are in the running for Fed share will be put into a house with cameras. I don't know. But we will be back here tomorrow with all of the news that happened the last 24 hours. And Jake will be back next Tuesday. Jake, thank you so much for stopping by as always.
You're welcome.
Follow these guys. As you've seen on the show today, they make some pretty good calls, pretty spot on calls. So we'll be back with you first thing tomorrow morning.